Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So we've just completed the most recent NGS headline wave, and yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in this one. So we're gonna go over everything that we have found out in the headline wave and give my thoughts on the entire broadcast at the very end. So, but before we jump to that, as is usually the case, I'm Chrono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe. We crushed that 10K goal. I still have not gotten a new intro that I enjoy, so I'm probably gonna have this be super awkward every single time. I'm gonna say the word subscribe because it glows at the bottom. You see it? Subscribe, I said it. I said it, jingle keys, jingle, jingle. See, the intro sucks. I'm a yap. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, so the headline actually was pretty packed, like in a weird way, actually, because looking at the first half, I was like, hang on, that's not a whole lot. And the second half, I'm like, that's not a whole lot either. And then we got the roadmap and things changed. My opinion then immediately changed. So it's funny how this is the first slide they're showing, even though that's not the first thing they showed off, but you know what? Whatever, I'll allow it. First slide, Revival Collection, July 2025. I'm gonna say this now, I've said this to my chat. You're gonna see rewinds happen pretty regularly now. Essentially what these are, the whole point of these is to kind of kill the whole concept of people holding on to a bunch of items and then selling them super expensively. People basically complain that, you know, do something about the market. This is kind of like their fight against the market in a sense. Also their fight for their wallets. So yeah, they get to make money while you also don't have to deal with exorbitant prices. So it is what it is. Big Bang Scratch is coming back. Very happy to see that because for some reason, a lot of vouchers were taken out of a lot of like regular things. So vouchers have been very, very slow recently. In most cases, only from like events and things like that. But we're seeing Big Bang come back around. So that's good. Hopefully that changes fairly soon. Vouchers are going to start becoming a bit more useful, kind of. We're going to talk about that when we talk about the new stuff that's on the horizon. So that's pretty cool, I guess. First big piece of content, the Alter Realm exploration. Funny enough, the information for this has been in the game since the level 105 update, and I just didn't know about it. It was actually under the help menu. And if you're watching this video, you can actually find it today. Just open up the help menu, take a look at, I think it's a game guide, and there's a section for Alter Realm that explains most of these things already, which is kind of funny. But it's a 32 player zone. From the looks of it, essentially what it seems to be is they're trials that spawn with tons of different enemies. There is a timer that happens in the top right hand corner. That timer goes until the boss spawns, and then defeating enemies and completing trials is going to make that boss weaker. So it makes it easier for you to kill him. And then of course there are limited title tasks, blah, 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 blah. The usual things here. Hopefully this is actually worth the farm for money, by the way, too. They got to get people out of deck space, man. They got to. Along with that, we have the new 13 star, the Juvolg weapon series. Now, this looks to be our new build-up weapon, but it's got a little bit of a weird twist, and I'm going to talk about that here, too. So, new 13 star boosts damage resistance and critical rate, lowers PP consumption, and boosts photon blast accumulation gauge. When using the series as a material, you can do an augment transfer without an N augmentation transfer pass. Plus, more enhancements are coming in the future. This combines two different concepts. So the Exilio was the base form of our previous build-up weapon that eventually became Arcosalio. But we also had the Chlorodium, which I think was predated by something else. I can't remember the name of the other weapon, that you could transfer off of that weapon for free. The reason for it primarily was because those weapons dropped EX augments. It seems like they've combined both of these things together with the new 13 star. And I think the reason behind that specifically is to create a situation. Now, granted, this is complete speculation. I'm not sure this is the case, but this is the only thing that makes sense to me. It's to create a situation where if you are a player who primarily prefers to go for the build-up weapon, in most cases, it tends to be a little bit weaker than the chase weapon. But if you build this weapon, you're going to end up in a situation where when the next build-up weapon comes out, you can move over to that weapon without actually, you know, losing out on your augments. Essentially, if they continue this trend, it would create an infinite loop of you never have to worry about augmenting your weapon as good as you can because you'll always be able to move it over to the next weapon that's available. Now, again, it made sense for Chlorodium and Iridium, that was the other weapon, thank you, Iridium, to have this ability because you need to move EX augments off of them, but these are not going to drop with EX augments that we're aware of. They haven't said these come with EX augments, I'm pretty sure they don't, but that was the whole point of the previous ones. So that's the reason why this is the thought process that I have for these weapons. It would make sense, right? For someone who doesn't want to invest in getting those chase weapons, they tend to not want to, or they tend to have a little less investment in their actual gear. This would reward them by over time investing in their gear. So I think this is actually a pretty good thing here. They're also adding new ranks for Rotem region urgent quests. So we get new ranks for Mining Rig and new ranks for Omen of the Planet Breaker, rank 2 for Omen of Planet Breaker and rank 4 for Mining Rig. Maybe Mining Rig will be fun to run again. Who knows? We'll have to see. We have a collab. I don't know the collab personally. It's all type 2 outfits, not a bad thing, but so I really don't care too much about it, to be perfectly honest, but they all look really good. So if this is something that you're a fan of, it's a model series. Okay, it's a plastic model series. That makes a lot of sense. I don't do figurines, so it is what it is. No big deal, but it does look very good. So I expect to see a lot of interesting screenshots pop up all over PSO2 Twitter. And then of course they show off the actual collab scratch. We have, oh wow, it actually comes with build part decks. That's pretty cool. Vital gauges, of course. Oh, yep, play mats. Assuming these are all camos, if I remember correctly. Yep, camos. And oh, actually these are emotes. Camos here, emotes here. Very nice. And of course the outfits. So it is what it is. We also have the new mission pass. It's going to come with I always call it the Izane arm units, basically, but it's coming with the leg and the arm units. There's also a back unit. I'm not sure if we already got the back unit or if they're doing that later. We might have already gotten the back unit, to be honest, in a previous mission pass, and I just wasn't paying attention. I tend to just use those items and kind of move forward from there. But nothing too crazy I see in the mission pass. We do get a mag this time around. So Volkstall, which is pretty nice. So we'll take it. And then of course stamps. Looks like riding a drone. We get that coming back in a red format for emotion. So that's pretty cool. Another 2 revival AC scratch tickets. These are NGS spec. So very, very nice. Again, expect to see these. Nothing really much to say about them. If you missed out on them in the past, you plan to spend some money, then hey, cool. If you don't plan to spend any money, then likely this is gonna be your best chance to purchase them from the market, because other players probably will be spending some money to make a bit of extra cash in game. And that's everything for the first half. And that's why I was like, it didn't really feel like there was a whole lot going on in the first half. Basically, the first half from a content perspective is mostly going to be the new zone, as well as the new weapon chase, or the new weapons themselves. Now, I don't know if they're gonna be putting the current 13-star in that piece of content. I think it'd be a mistake if they did, to be perfectly honest. I'd prefer that they keep the current 4-man viable as a piece of content to run, but we'll have to see what they decide to do and what their thought process are on this situation. Anyway, we have the second half. The second half starts out with a new LTQ. LTQ is actually pretty important this time around. We'll talk about why in just a moment, but it is a rerun of an LTQ from previous with, of course, updated enemies and our good friend Ruin Griffin back. I don't know who likes this guy. I do know who likes this guy. I'm memeing mostly, but Griffin is here. If you are a Griffin fan, sound off in the comments. Just know that me and all my homies both hate you and Griffin. Title tasks, of course, limited task rewards, all that good stuff. New equipment. So we finally have confirmation. I mentioned this during the previous update video a while back, but we have confirmation that the new units will be upgrading. However, they're going to upgrade a little bit differently this time around. So there's going to be just the standard green armor that they have. I say standard, but it's never really been green. But there's going to be a standard armor. It's just the S-Cool armor. That's going to increase both HP and PP. And then there is another variant of the S-Cool armor, S-Cool armor Lise, which lowers PP in exchange for a significant HP boost. Now, there are some classes in the game that really just don't need extra PP, or they have really good PP economy, whether it be through their playstyle or through the skills they choose to utilize. So they can then salvage that extra PP they don't really need and put it into a massive HP boost. Basically, you're able to essentially set yourself up to have quite a bit of HP. To how much? We don't know. They didn't tell us how much there is. I mean, everything gets damage reduction, so that's cool. But the only thing we know at the moment is we can see right here, 2% damage resistance versus 0. So that's cool. 2 extra defense at base level. So we'll take it, right? The best news here is that just means that you are pretty much good to go to upgrade to the new armor if you are able to. So if you're ready to upgrade and you're just waiting for the confirmation that you weren't going to be making a mistake, well, here you go. You're all set to go. Go ahead and jump onto your new armor set. But if you are not, then hey, you got some time. And these armors are probably going to drop a lot more from the new piece of content that's coming out. So you'll likely see the prices start to dwindle even more. Going for higher fixes will be pretty common. So yeah, we're already there. I've actually got my entire set at Fixa 3. So I'll be likely swapping over to at least 2 pieces of that after we finish this up. So pretty dope. It's an interesting take they're going on this one. Like usually in the past purple armor, you sacrifice defense for extra damage. In this case, you're sacrificing extra photon point and economy for extra HP. So pretty cool. And the item you need to upgrade these pieces of gear, Prog Relevance, drops from the LTQ, which is why I said the LTQ does have its variance or its relevance. Probably going to farm that out for your units pretty quickly. So So the treasure scratch coming back around for the 9th version, and then we have the Big Bang scratch tickets going to be in there as well. We also have the urgent quest coming back around. So we have double urgent quests at a lower health amount. So, all right. So we also have, moving on, guess what? Another remix scratch. It's almost like I mentioned these are going to happen a lot because they are going to happen a lot. They just want to make sure you have access to a lot of these things here available. So remix scratch coming around this time for accessories. So we got a lot of really cool accessories. The interesting thing here in this situation is, one, it's Magus Dreadkeeper S is available here from the scratch count bonus. And I'm not sure if they meant this is in the scratch count bonus. I think it is, because, well, no, maybe this is just the new items in the list, but they mentioned Balloon Bosom here returns. And then they talk about the scratch count bonus. I think this is just like, these are new variants of items that have already existed. And these are just also in the scratch. But this was always like 8 to 9 mils. So I'm actually curious to see how much it's going to be now that it's returned. Because every time Balloon Bosom showed up, it was always expensive. So it's kind of funny. Another memory scratch. So this is another remix scratch, basically. This is PSO2 memories. So this is just from, they're basically PSO2 spec items. One of them apparently being almost 10 years old now at this point. So pretty nifty. And then we have the summer scratch. This is the summer scratch. I can't read, apparently. Summer Sky Seaside scratch. So it's just our obligatory bikini scratch. We have our type 1 homies are getting themselves another banana hammock. We also have a pretty cool outerwear that we get, something specifically for type 2, as is usually the case. And they have, it looks like, 2 different outfits that they have available to them. This looks like a bikini plus a outerwear, or it could be a set wear and really upset some people. We'll have to see how that goes. We also have Emote Modeling 3 and Idle Surfing, along with the Motion Glide Rappiana Floaty. So it looks like it's mostly centered around Rappiana Floaty, which is pretty cool. Then we have the Operation Report. Now, the Operation Report brought us some pretty interesting stuff. So this is what's going to cause this video to be like way longer, by the way. So just strap in. We're going to be here for a minute. We're going to talk quite a bit about what we see here, because we'll be going over the roadmap. Now, these are just my initial thoughts for just seeing this. I'll probably do a further deep dive into this after I've had more time with it, but we're going to go over what the roadmap shows and go from there, right? So for July, we've got the new Alter Realm, Interception Sector, and a limited quest, pretty standard, new enemies, and of course the collaboration scratch. So we're currently going into this. We know about this because this is in the headline. August to September, we have the PSO2 13th Anniversary Super Fantasy Festival, 2 limited quests, limited time urgent quest. We have new trigger quests, a new field, Alter Realm combat sectors. So it looks like there's going to be combat version or combat sector versions of Alter Realm, which actually leads me to wonder what they're, You know, I did say I want to get people out of deck space. What if it gets them into Alnoth? I apologize for saying the sentence, we want to get people out of deck space. I just want you to know that it's not my fault. Please understand, it's not, you can't start blaming me. I know you guys want to, you cannot start blaming me. Just don't. Also, Lucille exploration update. So Lucille gets updated as well. Also, we see this boss here. I think this is going to be the new boss that's going to be added into Lucille. And if it's the boss I think it is, it should be quite fun to deal with. Waker expansion. So Waker expansion is going to be in August to September. That's pretty dope. And we also have the robot enemy that I mean, if you've played base PSO2, you know exactly who this is. I don't remember his name. Chad probably going to say it in the chat, so keep an eye on that if you want to know what his name is. But we all know who this guy is. He probably has a giant fuck you laser too. It's going to be awesome. New scratch ticket campaign, game from another company. We don't know what this is just quite yet. And then mini episodes. This is going to be something that's very common. You're going to see quite here. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit here. October to November. Love this time of the year. We get our Halloween stuff. Love it. Limited time quests. We get 4 of these, so probably 1 each week. Limited time urgent quests is going to be popping up. A new extra duel and a new field update. So likely going to be the boss for the extra duel. I don't know who this actually is. This is actually pretty interesting, but we'll have to see. And here's where things get spicy. New action system, EX style. New item system. This was not listed here before. Just keep that in mind. This is what I talk about when I say that roadmaps don't have everything. Know that when things are confirmed, usually is when you'll see it popped into the roadmap, because it doesn't get moved around too much. It'll always say subject to change. To be perfectly honest, usually these are usually pretty the set in stone stuff. The things that aren't really talked about yet, or things that aren't going to pop up in like, or that are going to be a part of like patch notes, usually aren't going to be in here because they can move these things around all the time. But usually these are going to be the framework of when you're going to see these things release in most situations, unless they update the roadmap. So skill rings. Skill rings is interesting. So if people don't know what skill rings work, these were an item back in base PSO2, where they essentially had different effects. These effects could range from things that are specific to your class versus things that were a bit more generalistic. A left ring and a right ring. Don't ask me if I remember which ring goes on which hand versus which one was class specific. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm not going to remember, I'm sorry. It's not a thing. But you had those types of rings. Now, you could originally wear 2 rings. And at a certain point, they got pretty restrictive because certain classes just required rings. You had things like Blight Round, I can't remember what it was called specifically. It was Blight Round Chase or something like that. But essentially, it made it so whenever you shot a Blight Round, if you were locked onto a target, nothing could get in the way of you going for that or hitting that target, right? So if you were locked onto a spot and you shot a Blight Round, but the boss moved and he turned and put something else in front of it, you would still hit the thing that you were locked onto instead. So it was basically like hit scanned for your Blight Rounds, which is great. For a class like myself that I played Etoile, I had something called full connect, short charge, or half connect, something along those lines. Basically, it allowed me to charge up my connect with only half a bar. It basically added in other mechanics to classes that you utilized. However, there were more generalistic things. There were things like increased crit damage. There were things like allow you to heal in specific ways, so on and so forth. Like there were tons and tons of different things that were added in via skill rings. Some of these things realistically should have just been a part of classes. Skill rings for a lot of players were seen as a band-aid fix to a problem of not adding certain things in, but for other players, they saw it as a way to be able to customize their class experience. It depends on what side of the argument you're on. It could be either or, realistically speaking. However, there are some players that have mentioned this, and I kind of agree with them. We do need something else to chase after when it comes to gear. It's become very formulaic and very easy for us to get what we need at the moment. So I'm totally fine with something like skill rings if they bring something interesting to the table when it comes to classes, even if it's locked to having to wear that specific skill ring all the time. Doesn't really bother me too much. I'm also sure there are plenty of rangers out there that would absolutely love to have their hit scan blight back, because I know for a fact there are plenty of rangers that get irritated when their blights don't go where they want them to. So we'll see how that works out. We're going to talk about the EX styles in just a second too. I have a video I want to pull up because we saw the EX styles and it reminded one of my viewers of something. So, and honestly, I don't disagree with him. Also going to 110, happening in October. New enemies, new scratch ticket campaign, and a new mini episode. Gonna see this a lot. December, we've got NGS 4.5 anniversary. Feels like we always have some festival going on. You know, honestly, I'll take the free rewards. It's fun. Lucille exploration update's going to happen at that point in time. Limited time quest, new extra duel update, new limited time urgent quest, and new field update with a question mark at the very end. That question mark could be for the boss. It could be about the field. We don't really know what it's supposed to be about specifically because they don't specify. We also have a new large boss enemy. It's probably the new large boss enemy. Let's be for real. And a legendary rarity upgrade. So Legend Dios likely is going to get upgraded at that point in time. So my Legend Dios gamers, Christmas time is your time if you're looking for Legend Dios to update. So maybe have one in the background if you want to make sure you have access to a weapon that's going to be useful for you in those situations. Just keep that in mind. We also see a little silhouette of what we're all convinced is a Rappy of some form. It could be a Rappy from PSO1. It could be a Nab Rappy from PSU. We'll have to see what it is whenever it comes around. We also have I think it's an event that gives you free AC tickets. We have a free SG/AC scratch. So that's pretty dope. And we have ticket item updates. And we also have a collaboration with a SEGA game. And then of course, a mini episode. Yep, it's gonna keep happening. February onwards, we have the 5th anniversary event that's gonna be happening. And apparently, because of the 5th anniversary event, it's gonna go on for an entire year. So cool. I'm curious to see what that's gonna be about. We also have Nameless City and then, a familiar silhouette. If you know, you know. And the answer to a question that a lot of people had here is Slayer expansion. So Slayers are also getting an expansion here. We also have new enemies. You know what's funny? I just went through this entire thing and I realized something very, very important. I think it was somewhere in the August step, but it isn't here. This is what I talk about when I say there are things that are a part of updates or roadmaps that they don't actually add into it. They also mentioned Gunner and Fighter by name. So they're also getting some changes too. There's some balance changes happening for Gunner and Fighter. They're mentioned for the August section, but it's not listed here. So just keep that in mind, right? There are things that are going to happen that aren't going to be on here. So even though this feels pretty stacked, to be perfectly honest. At the very end, again, mini episode. So the only real L I have from the roadmap is mini episode, mini episode, mini episode, mini episode. No actual like concrete story. Now this can mean a few things, right? This can mean a couple of things. This can mean one, they're not focused on story at all. This could mean they don't really care, which I don't think is the case. I think it's the latter. I think they're actually very heavily focused on story because of the criticism they've received about story. And as you can see, we have nothing scheduled until February onwards and past. Now, as is usually the case, people are going to say, oh, it's copium, it's hopium, blah, 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 whatever it happens to be. However, I'm going to repeat that I've said these things now for 3 years and every time been correct. So you know what? I will say the same sentence I say every single time. If I am wrong, I will be more than happy to admit that I was wrong and wear the shoe on my head. However, I personally would recommend you suspend your disbelief, possibly for just a moment, and think, why would SEGA specifically delay a story when everyone continues to ask for it? And the only thing that really makes sense is they're putting in the time to make an actual good story that people want to get invested into. That kind of tracks as far as I'm concerned, but could be wrong. So we'll see. That's it for the roadmap. That's pretty much all they have here. I like the headline. I like the headline roadmap. Everything looks pretty solid. We'll have to see what's going on here. Slayer expansion. I mean, yeah, we finally got around to it, but keep in mind, Slayer came out and then the expansion started. So this just kind of makes sense in order. We got the operation report questions. Can't skip quest clear animations sometimes, which make it repeatedly playing the same quest take longer. Are there any plans to fix this? Skill issue. Simply abandon the quest right after you complete it. You skip the actual cutscene. You're good to go. But yeah, they basically said yes. The TLDR is they said they're making it faster. It's annoying how boss enemies' HP gauges aren't always displayed during quests. Can you fix this? TLDR, yes. They're making it so you always see boss enemy HP bars. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that works out really well and there's not a problem with that. Moving on, satellite information. We have a meme contest that's going on. So from the 25th to the 30th, they'll be running this meme contest. Winning submissions will become stamps in game. So should be cool. Okay, so here's something really nice. The PSO2 web store is open. They opened this up a while ago. This is the way you do a web store. Pay close attention. We talked about this, at least on my stream, we talked about this when people kind of got up in arms about Epic. That's suing Apple and those other companies specifically about the use of their storefronts and things like that. And what I mentioned is actually, funny enough, exactly what PSO2 is doing. They have their own storefront for you to purchase currency through their storefront, and you get it cheaper from them directly. Not that, oh, we're selling it at the average price, buy it from us instead of buying it from the other company that's selling it for more expensive or pull them away from it. They're offering deals and they're offering reduced prices if you buy it directly from them. This is a W for us. Also, apparently there's a 55% discount on your first purchase. So go ham if you're gonna buy something for the first time. Massive W, apparently only available in the US. I am very sorry. VPNs are a thing. New collab with Toho. This explains why the phase 3 of the most recent 4-man difficult fight is basically a bullet hell, because they're doing a Toho collab. So my Toho fans, just know it's your kneecaps I'm coming for next. And then they did music for Falls Vile. So I mentioned I was gonna wait until the second half, right? The new system. I'm gonna let this one play actually. We're gonna analyze this, by the way. So this is nothing. They're just attacking. Again, attacking. Oh, now things are different. So there's a mix of a few things here that I'm seeing. It looks very similar to build up abilities. And it also looks very similar to compound attacks. It also looks very much like ultimates or like just abilities you press. And looking, we couldn't actually see their bars. So we don't know how this works, whether it's gonna be something that's consistent or whether it's gonna be a simple button. There's a lot of things that we don't know about how this works just yet. So I'm not gonna make my judgment calls on it just yet, because when they do these short demos, like you can barely tell what they actually are supposed to be. So it's supposed to be a teaser. It's still in development. So let's leave it as what it is for right now. But looking at this, what it reminded us of was Phantasy Star Portable 2 Infinity Blasts. Now, Infinity Blasts were an ability that Doomans had, where they essentially would go into a specific form and they would have weird extra attacks. And these attacks would be based on your individual classes. Now, when they introduced this new EX style system, they talked about it in the sense of it being almost like a third class. not an ability, not a skill, but a third class that you had on top of your two main and subclasses. So to me, at least, it feels very similar to something like this. Similar, maybe not the same, but it feels similar, where I feel like we're not seeing the entire picture. We're seeing a couple of attacks that have currently been developed, and that's really about it. I could see them doing something similar to this for the new classes that are coming out. And while I can't say for certain that's what they're going for, I find it weird that they would refer to something as a third class that you would have alongside your class, and it be a single attack, which is why I'm like, let's go ahead and wait until they cook this further and we get more information about it, because I think it just doesn't have enough information about it at the moment for us to understand exactly what it's supposed to be. But yeah, and that's it. That is the entire headline. So as far as my takeaways from this headline, of course, the biggest news here is going to be, outside of the roadmap, is the new zone as well as the weapon and the armor upgrade. The important information is, one, you're safe to grab the new armor. Go ahead and grab it. Go ahead and upgrade to it. You're all set to go. And as far as the new weapon is concerned, now, of course, this is purely speculation, 100%. It's likely going to be a good amount weaker than the current Krez weapon, but will be stronger than the Arcosalio. There's a pretty sizable gap between Arcosalio at its best and Krez at its worst. So likely this new weapon is somewhere on the lower end between those two, where it's still an upgrade for Arcosalio. For those of you guys who tend to build up your weapons over time, that is your new best in slot that you're going to jump to. And the fact that you're able to switch off of it for free, since you're going to be able to augment transfer off of it for free, likely means this is going to be something that's going to be consistent as time continues. So it depends on how things work out, on how they decide to do things moving forward. I think it's going to be a trend moving forward overall that's going to create a loop of players who tend to go for the chase weapon, who don't mind spending the money on that weapon itself to get that extra bit of power early on, versus players who go for the build-up weapon, where your weapon might not be as strong, but you're not spending nearly as much. You're saving a lot more money. Maybe play a bit more casually, so on and so forth. So I think that's going to be kind of the trend moving forward. We know the weapon upgrades. They've already confirmed that for us. So that's going to be kind of like your best in slot you're going to be going for. Outside of that, then there's, of course, the unit upgrades. Those are going to be very important. So go ahead and get your unit upgrades. Most are going to go for the school armor. If you don't need PP, then you can pick up the Lise armor. My first thought off the rip are classes like Gunner probably makes sense for this. Actually, I can't think of anyone else who really would not need PP at all. Maybe Hunter. Maybe people who want to just do HP memes. It's also an option as well. So teach their own. Depends on what you decide to go for. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. Just pick one and go for it. And then, of course, the roadmap. Roadmap looks solid. I do like a lot of what I see here. The only downside is, of course, mini episode. If they do cook a really good story, it's going to take them a while. So we're likely looking at, my guess is some form of time skip, some form of massive event that's happening. But keep in mind, a lot of times story tends to go along with when new things like this show up. And the fact that it's not coinciding this time around leads me to believe that they're not really related, or they're not really specifically connected to what's going on. Now, looking at these silhouettes, I know every single boss outside of whatever the fuck this is. Like all these bosses we've seen in the past, and of course this Rappy here, we've seen in the past. I don't know what this is. So I'm interested to see where they go with on this one. Should be interesting. But that's it. Longer video, but if there's anything I missed, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to keep up with more. As always, thank you to the channel members. You guys are fantastic, and I appreciate every single one of you.